And I thought as soon as I quit my job that I would just feel a certain way. And it was some of the most chaotic, stressful months, weeks of my life. Just the act of quitting your job is not going to magically fix you or heal you or change you. Not that you even need to be fixed or healed. Hello, my loves, and welcome back to my channel. As always, I am so grateful that you are here. My goal is to always make these videos feel like you're sitting down with a friend for coffee, hopefully at a cute coffee shop, just having deep conversations. That is literally one of my favorite things to do in the world. Today, we're talking about something that I've had on my list to talk about for a long time, and that is what I learned from quitting my job, or like the things that people don't tell you you're going to feel when you quit your job. So I'm going to tell you the story of why I quit my job, and my husband quit his job with me. He now has one now. I'm going to share some of my biggest lessons from quitting my job. And then at the end, I'm going to share financially how we were able to do that and how we're able to do it now. Like, I still don't have a job. I stay home with my kids. I create these videos. How are we able to do that? Because I know if I was watching this video, I would be seriously curious about that. So let's get into the backstory. So why did I quit my job? Well, for context, I was in education for 10 years. So I was a middle school science and math teacher for 5 years, 3 in Illinois, 2 in Arizona. And then I worked on the curriculum side of education. I was a subject matter expert. And then that transformed into something called a curriculum specialist. Basically, I helped shape the curriculum for the school I was working for. Very fascinating seeing both sides of education, from the classroom and then outside of the classroom. I learned so much, but I knew in my heart, especially as I transferred into that kind of more business role of education, I was like, this is not for me. This is not for my soul. It hurt my soul at some points, just because you see so much of education that you want to change and you don't necessarily agree with. That's a whole nother video. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I just knew in my heart that I wasn't meant to stay there in that position. So I put it out into the universe. I was like, my goal is to eventually quit my job. Well, through synchronicities and creating a life that we really wanted to create, I really want to emphasize that we put this plan into motion, and this is something Steven and I created with intention. And by making these decisions, we decided that we were going to buy Steven's grandpa's RV, an RV full time, because as I've explained in many videos, we love to travel, we love to camp, and we wanted to do that long term. We just wanted to try it. So the plan was we were going to quit our jobs in June 2023. We both did. And then we were going to fix up the RV and travel for at least a few months in the RV. Now, I will not explain the whole RV story because I've talked about that many times. It did not go as planned. But really, even though RV life didn't work out, what we were looking for with quitting our jobs and trying to travel full time was just freedom. We kept saying we wanted to drop out of society, which we did for a few weeks. We definitely did. We just wanted that feeling of freedom and not being tied to someone else's agenda or schedule. And that is something we definitely achieved. But I just want to say with that, there were so many things that I thought I would feel quitting my job that I didn't. And I thought as soon as I quit my job that I would just feel a certain way. And it was some of the most chaotic, stressful months, weeks of my life. And a lot of that had to do with what we were trying to accomplish, which was travel full time. But also, I think a big part of it were just the expectations I put on once I quit my job, I'll feel this way. And that is not the case. And that is what I want to talk about today. So let's get into these lessons, because these are important. These are very important. If you're someone like me who is in a job you do not like and you have other things you want to pursue, maybe it's a creative venture like a YouTube channel or a podcast or some other type of business, or maybe you just want to switch careers, or maybe you just want to stay home with your kids. It doesn't really matter. I'm here to just share some things that might come up that I learned, I guess you could say, the hard way. I wasn't expecting to learn these in such a deep way when I quit my job. So the biggest lesson that I learned for sure was that nothing changes in your life if you don't change your energy, your vibration, and your mindset. If those things stay the same, Nothing else is going to change. This reminds me of something Abraham Hicks says all the time. And they're like, you can change your circumstance. You can quit your job. You can leave your partner. You can make like these massive decisions, but you're going to take yourself with you. And I think we see that a lot of times when you like jump around from job to job and you keep finding yourself in the same circumstance because you're taking yourself with you. You're taking your energy and your vibration and your resonance and your mindset and perspective with you. So I think a lot of us have this idea. I for sure did when I quit my job, that when I quit my job, it'll just fix all my problems. Like I'll be a completely new person. I'll be this like version of myself that I was putting on a pedestal that will just have it all figured out. She'll be living this free life and like not be tied down and just like get to work on her creative pursuits a lot more than she did before. The crazy thing was that I had less time after I quit my job because we were so busy with RV life. I was watching Arlo full time. And if you are a stay at home parent, you know that is very consuming. I feel like I've gotten into a good balance now. It's taken 3 years for me to have the right mindset and perspective. But like what I really want to communicate here is that like quitting your job isn't going to heal you. It's not going to magically like erase all these like limiting beliefs and limiting perspectives and energies that you have. That is an internal job and that is a journey. So I'm not saying like don't quit your job or like I'm not even telling you to quit your job. What I'm telling you is that the act of quitting your job isn't going to solve all your problems. It's the internal work that is truly going to make the biggest difference in your life. So, a beautiful thing with that is you don't have to quit your job to change your internal world, to change your perspective, your energy, and your mindset. Or you can quit your job, but just make sure you're also working on that internal stuff as well. Don't rely on just the act of like, oh, I'm going to quit my job and I won't have to answer to anyone, blah, blah, blah. And like, that's going to fix my problems. No, like, there's a lot of internal work to be done when you make any massive shift like that. Next thing beautifully ties to the first point, and that is you don't have to quit your job to take your passion seriously. I had a huge limiting belief that I had to quit my job in order to become like a serious YouTuber or a serious podcaster. I was really deep into my podcast when I quit my job. Like I was releasing 2 episodes a week, interviewing all these people. It was so fun. It was such a beautiful season. And I just had this idea in my mind that I had to quit my job to be a serious podcaster. Now, this reminds me of the book Big Magic, which if you haven't read that book and you're a creative person, please go and read it. It is a very popular book for a reason. And Elizabeth Gilbert talks about how like you shouldn't quit your day job when you're like in the very beginning of your creative path, because a lot of times that can put very unnecessary pressure on your passions. And what happens when you put a lot of pressure on your passions, especially financial pressure, like you have to make me money or you have to do this certain thing for my life, it just crushes your creativity. It just completely like blows out the fire that is your creativity when you put pressure on it like that. So, if I were to go back and tell myself advice, which I think it all worked out the way it was supposed to, so I don't like have regrets about this, but if I could go back to that version of me that was working my job, doing creative things and momming at the same time, like the way I had it set up, because we did have part-time at childcare, I did have more time actually to work on the things that I wanted to work on. So I would just go back and tell that version of Lindsay, like, hey, you don't have to quit your job to take yourself seriously. Like, just make time for your passions and do what you can. This also reminds me of something Bashar talks about all the time, which you know I love me some Bashar. He says, for the formula for like living your best life, follow your passions to the best of your ability as long as you can. And the second part is release the expectation of what's supposed to happen. And that is so hard, but so important. And I really have been in a deep season of learning that since quitting my job. So, like, if you want to take your passion seriously, take them seriously. You don't have to quit your job to take the things you want to do in your life seriously. Just go and do them. It really is that simple. The next thing that was so apparent to me, and I feel like is such a deep story in our society right now, is how much of our worth we tie to our jobs, our identity, our careers, our path, our finances. Like, so much of our worth is in our career and like how busy we are and how much we're getting done. I even noticed that like in the corporate setting and a little bit in the education setting too. Like it was all about like showing how busy you are. And maybe that's changed. I have been out of it for 3 years now. But like people wear busyness like a badge of honor. They just tie so much of their worth to their career. So like when my career was gone, this was something I really didn't expect. Like, especially going from like having a full time job to being a full time stay at home mom, like that worthiness piece came up a lot. I was like, where does my worthiness lie? Like, internally, deep down, on a soul level, I know that I am undeniably worthy no matter what. No matter what I accomplish, I am worthy of living a beautiful life, right? But there's so much like conditioning and stuff on top of that that was telling me like, oh, you're not like getting these things accomplished in a day. Like some days as a stay-at-home mom, especially in the beginning, I was just surviving and there was nothing to like show at the end of the day. Like this is what I got done. So it really was like confronting to me and still is. And I'm like still learning this lesson. I'm in a much better spot, thank goodness. But like our worthiness is not in what we get done. And you don't have to earn rest. That's a deep one, but I feel like it's very connected to our careers and just like that hustle mentality that society is slowly creeping out of. But like you can rest first and then do the thing. And I know that's hard as a mom. I don't always get to do that either. But like when you do get a break to yourself, you can rest first and then be creative. I think alignment before action and resting is a great way to get in alignment before you take action is so powerful. But also, like, back to it being our identity, like, at your core, you're not a teacher or a doctor or a nurse or a medical professional or a business owner or whatever. At your core, you are a limitless soul that is here to grow and evolve and experience and have fun and find the simple joys in life. Like, yes, that may be a role you're taking on right now, but that's not who you are. And I just think that's really hard for a lot of people because it does become our identity. So if you, even if let's say you got fired from a job and you like lost that identity, you can feel like just completely lost. And that leads me to another thing I went through, which is the void season. I feel like I'm still in the void season, if I'm going to be honest. But after quitting my job, I was truly in the void. And that is just a period where you're like in the in between. You don't necessarily know what you want anymore, especially right after RV life. I was like, I have no idea what I want in this life. This is something I was working so hard to accomplish. Like Steven and I did all of these things to make sure that we could go and do RV life and afford it and like be successful at it. And then when it didn't work out, we were like, I don't even know what I want in life anymore. Like it was such an ego death. Spiritual people talk about that all the time, but it really was such an ego death. And I've been like reeling from that sense, especially like not having a job anymore, which is something I wanted so bad, but I didn't realize how much at a surface level, like you get that serotonin dopamine hit from like going to a job and accomplishing things, right? I was truly in the void season, still am. Like, even though it can seem scary, the void season can definitely seem scary because it is dark. You don't know what you want. There's so much uncertainty, which is so hard for the mind. But the beautiful part of a void season is it's like a fresh start. It's a very fertile season, not like literally, even though I have had two babies in the past 4 years. But like for ideas and creativity in that darkness, things can get planted. You can become open to so many new things. So even though the void season can feel very scary, and I will link some podcast episodes I did on the void season still in it, like I said, sometimes you just have to embrace the unknown and just let it take you on the ride of life. For me personally, I know that we all chose these certain paths before we came to earth. That is my belief that our souls chose these different paths, these different lessons to learn. So when I'm in a really hard season like that, especially a void season, I'm like, okay, what's the lesson here? And that doesn't mean I like avoid my feelings. Like with all of this, when you're quitting your job and feeling all the feels, or maybe you're just like transitioning jobs. I have a friend that is going from a career that she's had for the past like 10 plus years into something else, or people that are retiring. Like, allow yourself to feel the feels. You're going to have all the range of emotions. You're going to feel very excited. You're going to feel very scared and everything in between. Feel it. And then also allow yourself to just experiment with uncertainty. Just embrace it a little bit here and there and just be open and curious to what your path is leading you to next. What are you passionate about now? Like, that is the beautiful thing about quitting your job or switching jobs or just like changing up your career is it can open up space for new things to come into your life, and that is beautiful. All right, with all of that, another lesson that I've learned is that your passions do not have to be your source of income. And I kind of touched on this before, but like if you put the pressure on the things that you're passionate about to be your income, it can just totally extinguish that fire that you have for your passions. For me personally, since I quit my job, and I'll talk more about this at the end, the way that we have it set up, like I don't necessarily need to have an income right now, but of course my mind wants to have an income because like again, our worth is tied to like, am I financially contributing? Like, that is such a deep story that I am continuing to work on because I know I'm contributing so much to this family by being with our kids pretty much all the time and raising them. But like, financially contributing to the family is a huge way that we can measure our worthiness. So, I've had this idea that like my passions have to bring me abundance. What's interesting is when I stay open and I keep asking for guidance, like this whole time I've really been leaning into like my spirit team and my own intuition, like what's next for me? What's next for me? Abundance has shown up in many other ways. I won't go too much into the story, but like 2 years ago ish, I got the opportunity to watch Arlo's cousin 3 days a week. I think I watched her 3 days a week, and I was already watching Arlo. So that was a way I was able to, again, receive abundance for doing the things that I was already doing, which was watching my son. Just add in another toddler. I mean, I make it sound easy. It was definitely challenging at sometimes watching two toddlers, especially when I was pregnant. But that was just such an unexpected way to receive abundance. So, like, really, like I said before, experiment with being open. And abundance has come in there's so many other ways. Like things that I used to sell, I still get paid for that once in a while. Sometimes we'll get like a random refund for something, or I don't know. There's just so many ways that we can receive abundance, not just through our career. So I feel like quitting your job is a really great way to experiment with the energy of receiving because being able to receive is a skill. All right, last thing I want to hit on before I talk about how we were able to financially do this is that one thing that has become very apparent to me is that we are all creators in some way. We are all creating our life, we are all creating our perspective, we're all creating our energies, and we also all have things that we're passionate and excited about. So, no matter if you have a full time job or not, you're a stay at home mom or not, you're a business owner or not, just don't forget that you are a creator and that like we have these things that we're passionate about for a reason. And don't forget to like stoke that fire and make time for that. Whether you want to make it something bigger or not, like we are all creators in some way, whether it is just like creating an energy or an ambiance or a business or hobby or whatever. Like just don't forget to feed that energy because that is soul filling, and a big reason that you came here was to like have fun and experiment and grow and evolve and just pursue those things that you are excited about. The things you are excited about are not random. Okay. If you stayed to the end, let me know down in the comments because I'm just curious. Maybe comment like the emojis that you would feel if you were quitting your job or if you have quit your job. Like put some emojis in the comments for how you would feel if you have or did quit your job. So, how are we financially able to do this? First of all, at the time that we quit our jobs, Stephen and I both had full-time jobs. What we decided to do actually, and the way this all like worked out was just so perfectly, we were like, okay, let's rent out our house, but we can't like move our furniture because we live in Phoenix. And like the plan was to always, like, after we did our RV life, probably move back to the Midwest where we are now. So we're like, we don't want to like move all this furniture unnecessarily right now. So why don't we rent out our house furnished? And we did something at the time called rental arbitrage. I'm not sure if this is still a thing. If it is, look it up. But basically, what we did was we rented our house to a company that then rented it out as a short-term rental, either to like traveling nurses or an Airbnb situation. And that worked great for like the first year. And luckily, we lived in a spot where that was feasible, like where people were traveling to. Phoenix is a place that people travel to a lot. I do think that market is a little oversaturated. So those people didn't continue that contract. But like, if you're in a spot where that is possible, definitely look into that. But what happened after that? So we did that for a year. We are now just renting out our house there, completely furnished to someone who lives there now. It's a mom and her children, and just the situation she was in, she needed a furnished house, and it is working out beautifully. So again, just be open to the different ways that you can receive abundance. Maybe that is something you haven't even thought about and you want to go travel full time. Can you rent out your house, either furnished or unfurnished, short term or long term? So many possibilities there. Now, when we did get back and settled, we did live with Steven's parents for like 3 months. Steven was able to get a job at the old utility company that he worked for before we moved to Phoenix. And again, like I said, it just didn't make sense for me to get a full-time job. So now I stay home with our kids, and that works for us. So we have the rental properties. We actually have another rental property that I had when I moved to Phoenix. We have 2 rental properties that helps us provide for ourselves financially, and Steven has a full-time job. So what's interesting is I didn't go into life being like, you know what, I'm going to have rental properties. They just kind of happened and it made sense in those seasons. Like I rented out my house in Springfield when I moved to Phoenix. It was like every time I moved, I would just keep my house and rent it out. And that ended up really working out for me in the long run because it allowed me to go on this adventure. And yeah, so if you're curious, that's how we're able to afford it financially. Really, what I want this video to be a reminder to anyone that needs to hear it, anyone that needs this talk, this deep chat, or this lesson is if you are thinking about quitting your job, if you are wanting to quit your job, beautiful. If you know in your heart, like, this is not the career for me, I totally know that feeling and I have so much compassion for you. But know that just the act of quitting your job is not going to magically fix you or heal you or change you. Not that you even need to be fixed or healed. Quitting your job can be a beautiful catalyst for those processes to involve. But changing your mindset and healing and growing truly is something that has to happen internally. And I think for a lot of us, not only are we trying to quit our jobs, but we're trying to create a completely new life and trying to be a completely different person. And like I've said many times, that's an internal job. Like changing your life and changing who you are is something you do internally. And then the externals just kind of figure themselves out. And you don't have to quit your job to change your life and change who you are. But a lot of times when you start doing that internal work, the external will follow suit. I'm so curious. What do you guys think of all of these lessons that I've shared? Maybe you've experienced this anyways, whether you quit your job or not. Let me know down in the comments your experience with quitting your jobs, or maybe transitioning jobs, or like struggles that you've had around identity and abundance and worthiness. It is such a journey that I am still on, and I share a lot of it on this channel and on my podcast. So if you're interested, please subscribe. I have so many different videos on here, from sit down videos like this where I'm openly and vulnerably sharing what I've learned and what I'm going through, to travel vlogs, to just like moments in my life. My new catchphrase on here is living a simple life and sharing deep thoughts. But I'm so grateful for every single one of you. Thank you for your time and energy. Share this video with anyone else you think needs to hear this message. And of course, I will see you in the next video.